I knew that sooner or later this computer technology was going to make it into the wood shop, and now with the Ready2Rout, it has. The Ready2Rout system comes mostly assembled, but you do have to install the mounting wings with the included hardware. We also have to install the fence wings, and there's one on either side. The wings are secured with these bars with large set screws that go into the top and bottom grooves. There's one on the top and bottom of each wing. Snug all of the set screws down and both of the fence wings are locked in place. The fence has these channels down its full length. It makes it easy for attaching your shop-made jigs and fixtures when you need them. This high-tech stepper motor is what gives the Ready2Rout its accuracy. On the panel next to that are the inlets for the power, the touch plate, and a USB drive for updates later. Right now the serial port on the right is in use, but it's not there by accident, and I hear there's some plans coming for this machine in the future. To mount the Ready2Rout, we just removed the existing fence from the router table. In most cases, the hardware that secured the fence will also secure the Ready2Rout to the table. And we just set the Ready2Rout on the router table and align the slots on the back with the existing mounting holes in the table. Any of these slots can be used for mounting the Ready2Rout and should cover most router tables out there. Then install the mounting hardware, make sure that the Ready2Rout is square to the table, and lock it in place. I mounted my Ready2Rout flush with the back edge of the table to give it the maximum capacity I could get. On my table I got a travel capacity of over 8 inches, and that's going to cover everything that I normally do. All that's left is to plug in the power supply. And we'll get this greeting on the touch screen. All of the operations are controlled through this screen. Push the About screen and we can find out what firmware we have. And you want to stay up on this because new apps will come out with new firmware. I'm going to show you in a separate video what the process is for updating the firmware. This is the touch plate accessory, and it makes setting this machine up so it knows exactly where 0 is very easy and super accurate. The touch plate just plugs into the back panel. I've installed a 1/2 inch diameter bit, told the system that it's a 1/2 inch bit, and got the cutting points directed right at the fence. We have to confirm that the touch plate works, and we do that by just touching the magnet to the plate. That completes the circuit, and we know that the touch plate is working. We stand the plate against the fence and hook the magnet to the opposite side of the router bit. Then we tell it to go ahead and begin the movement. The fence will creep forward until it just touches the router bit, and then it backs off. That procedure went okay, so we'll accept those results, and the Ready2Rout fence is calibrated. The first app I'm going to try is for a box joint. I'll select that, press the Run button, and that brings up this screen. This is where we tell it what diameter bit we're working with and how wide the material is that we're using. We just touch the dimension up on top, and that brings up the screen where we can enter how wide our wood really is. Lastly, we have the pin clearance, and this lets you dial in exactly how much clearance you want around the sides of the pins. I entered 2000s here, but after this I went back and zeroed this out because I figured there'd be run out in the router and I didn't want a sloppy joint. I would find out that that was wrong. First we'll cut the female side of the joint. You just press the Run button. That brings up the screen that tells you to check your cutter height. You push this, and the fence moves into the first position. And then you make this cut. After you make that cut, you push the button. It indexes the fence over for the next cut. Move the wood over tight against the fence, and then make that cut. You see here, it just stepped over a little bit to clean out this cut for the first pin. Now I'll push the button again, and it'll move over for a full cut. Move the wood over against the fence again and make the cut. You just keep repeating this process until all of the cuts are made. And the process for the other side of the joint is exactly the same. You just keep putting the wood against the fence and the Ready2Rout does all of the spacing. I was surprised at how quickly I can cut a joint like this once I got used to this process. Remember when I said I didn't dial in any clearance because I thought there'd be some runout? Well, this is where I found out how wrong that was. This is literally the first box joints I cut with this, and I'd find out that they are size on size. There's no clearance between the pins. It taps together with the mallet, but there's no room in there for glue. I think I need to dial in 2 or 3 thousandths anyway to leave room for a good film of glue. But this let me see just how accurate the Ready2Rout is. And it's way more accurate than I was expecting, to be frank. The joint isn't perfect, and it'd be a lot better if I'd have dialed in a couple of thousandths of clearance. But this was a good education for me. Box joints aren't going to be a problem for me in the future. Next we'll try some half-blind dovetails. We'll select Applications, select half-blind dovetails, press this to run the application, and now we can start entering the bit diameter, which I already have. I have to change the material width, so I'll push that and enter 5.5 inches, and then select OK. You can change the tail spacing, but I think we're going to leave that for some fooling around sessions later to see what kind of combination we like. And I think we'll start with cutting the sockets first. So we press that, and when we press run, we get this final warning screen for us to make sure that the cutter height is correct. We push this button and the fence moves to its first position. I clamped this board to the fence to act as a depth stop, and now we can go ahead and make the cuts. All you have to do is make the cut, push the button, keep the wood against the fence, make the second cut, push the button again, make the cut, push the button again. Just keep repeating that till you make all of the cuts across the board. The Ready2Rout moves the fence to the next position, puts it exactly where it's supposed to be. It really is this fast and this easy. I've changed to the pins program and didn't change anything else, and now we can secure the wood to the miter gauge, and I added a fence there to make this easier. With the fence at the first position, I make the cut, pull the wood back, and push the button. You'll notice that the fence moves just a little bit because this first pin is a little wider. So I move the fence over and tighten it down and make the second cut to clean up that pin. Now we'll begin cutting the full width pins. I push the button, move the wood over against the fence, and make the cut. Like before, we push the button, move the wood over, and continue making the cuts until all of them are complete on the board. And the program will tell you that it's complete. And now we can test fit the first joint. This one's a little bit tight. It'll work, but I have to knock it together with a mallet to get it to seat. If I was cutting this joint for a project, I would loosen this fit just slightly. All we do is lower the bit just a tick and then try it again. Bit height is always critical in half-blind dovetails. But you can see here that this is a usable joint as it is. A little bit of glue and some sanding and we're all ready to go. Let's say we need to cut a dado for this wood, but all I've got is a 1/2 inch bit. Well, the Ready2Rout fixes that. I've already entered the bit diameter in the dado application. Now we get to tell it how wide of a dado we want to make. I'll measure the wood thickness with my calipers. We push on the little bar with the current width and then enter the width that we want. You can set the Ready2Rout to accept just about any number format, but I'm staying with standard decimal. And here I've told it how far from the edge I want the dado to start. Like the other applications, when you tell it to run, it shows you the screen about making sure your bit height is right. With the fence in its first position, I make the dado cut. And we do this just like any other dado on a router table. Except now I push the button and it moves the fence over a little bit and we make a second pass. The second pass is what opens up this 1/2 inch groove to the exact width that we need, even though we only have a 1/2 inch diameter cutter. And if we measure this right, the wood should snap into place. It's nice and snug. So what if we wanted to make a dado to fit this piece of wood? It's wider than any dado bit's going to get. Well, that's easy with the Ready2Rout. You just measure the width and enter it into the program like we did before, and the Ready2Rout will figure it all out. After entering those dimensions in the Ready2Rout, we position the fence and make the first cut. And we do this just like when making the dovetails. We make a cut, push the button, the fence moves over to the second cut, make that cut and push the button and continue doing that until the application tells you it's done. Cutting a dado to fit that board actually took 5 passes. We're not going to bore you with all of them. When I finish the final cut, we're just going to flip the board over and see if the wood will fall into the dado. I learned my lesson in not telling the Ready2Rout to cut a little bit of clearance so we got room for a film of glue. And here the board falls right into place. It just doesn't get any easier cutting a perfect width dado. So if you own a router table and you want to make it spot on accurate, there's no easier way of doing it than with the Ready2Rout. This machine is very easy to use, and its usefulness will continue to grow every time they release a new app for it.